Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I love your comments and your questions, your emails, and I love sharing ideas back and forth. So today is a sharing day, and I thought I would give away a formula that I use in making something called a home compostable plastic. And when I was horsing around with this, fiddling around with stuff, I fell across this, and I love how it turned out. It's rock hard. It can be cut, sawed, it can be laid, shaped into things. I've tortured it in an oven overnight to see if I could get it to decompose in any fashion. You can keep this thing wet for an extended period of time. You can use them for planter boxes or planter pots, and you can make them yourself with stuff that you have right in your kitchen. It's considered a home compostable plastic. It's something rather new. As a matter of fact, home compostable plastics are becoming a really big deal, as they solve a lot of problems with well-known bioplastics, or what I would consider to be first generation bioplastics. I'll go over a few of the problems that we experience with bioplastics and why chemistry such as home compostables will be so important in the future for packaging, which leads me to this right here. In my last video, I made a silicone soap dish, and I used silicone, which got me to thinking that I'd really love to use something made from bioplastics, just to mix things up and to have some fun, because bioplastics is my thing. It's my business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to mix this up, and we're going to make something with bioplastic, and we're going to use pretty much the same kind of techniques or the same mold that I used to make this soap dish. Now, pardon me, but I want to use this again, so I took it off, and I'm going to use it in my new soap dish. Just rock hard and lightweight, extremely strong. I'm really pressing onto this thing. It would be very difficult to break this. I suspect it would hold on edge 20 pounds, easy. I mean, it's ideal stuff. Okay, so it's important to distinguish a home compostable plastic from generally considered bioplastics. For instance, I told you that I made these with PLA, and PLA is a bioplastic. Now, the problem with bioplastics is the reason why home compostable plastic is so important. To reclaim PLA or PHA or most of the other bioplastics, it requires a commercial composter to deal with that. In most cities, they don't have those types of facilities. So bioplastic cannot be recycled. It has to be composted to decompose. So when you put a bioplastic into your recycling bin, well, you just got the entire bin thrown away into the landfill. Bioplastics cannot go into recycling. They must go to a separate facility to be composted. Now, if you throw it in the trash, thinking that it'll decompose in the landfill, well, it won't. What happens there, of course, is stuff gets piled on it, and it's deprived of oxygen. And when bacteria and fungus do start chewing on it, it's going to produce something called methane. So we've actually we haven't solved anything with bioplastics, strangely enough. What we have done, though, is we've created another problem. So we're going to move into home compostable plastics, and we're going to rethink bioplastics in general. Now, all is not lost with bioplastics. They are still very viable and important for the future, and they are a part of our future as far as plastics go. Bioplastics simply need to be commercially composted, so all of our trash will be going to commercial composting. We are fast approaching the point where we can go back to what we all want, which is one trash can. You know, like in my day, bioplastics and trash are compatible. When you send your bioplastics and your organic waste to a commercial composter, well, the bioplastic, they can reclaim it, but it doesn't add any nutrients to the soil. So therefore, it simply becomes a filler in the compost of no real value. It has been broken down into its basic components, but there's no nutrition for soil. Commercial bio composters would love that stuff, because when a home compostable plastic decomposes, it actually decomposes into very valuable nutrients for soil, for plants, for the next generation. So home compostable plastic is what I'm going to make here. And what I'm going to use is, like I said, stuff that we can find in the kitchen. For those of you that know me, I use casein, okay? Now this is they've extracted the protein casein from milk and they've powderized it for me. But you can also, of course, precipitate the casein yourself using household vinegar and then process it yourself. So no real problem there. So we're going to get our casein together. You can precipitate it if you want, and then we're going to get rolling. So, and I'm going to make something fantastic, but we're going to do a little bit more. We're going to try to make it even more waterproof, because this formula is water resistant. It'll sit wet for a week, easy. It'll begin to decompose once it gets wet, but it will hold up for a week, easy. We're going to try to extend that just a little bit, and we're going to use tea, or what we're going to use is the tannin in the tea, and we're going to add a layer of waterproofing to it, and we're going to extend the time of our bioplastic soap dish. Okay, so a lot to do. Okay, so let's go over the steps involved in making this home compostable plastic. To begin with, instead of using the Dawn as my mold release, in this application, I'm going to use wax. I have a pot of soy wax here, and now the reason for that is I'm going to be using water. This is 30% vinegar, but it's 70% water. So I don't want to use a soap because the water will wash away the soap. And now it will react just a little bit with my mold release. It's the soy wax, the natural wax. It also washes away, but it's going to hang in there long enough because I'm going to dip it twice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up, not much for one. I'm going to mix up probably something shy of a quarter of a cup here, and I'm going to use nearly a cup of my 30% vinegar. Now, I use 30% vinegar, and you folks are going to ask, can I use just regular? The more water that you have in your mix, the more you're going to have to deal with shrinkage. Simple fact. So use what you want. Regular vinegar, lemon juice is a good one. But I'm going to use 30% vinegar. And I'm going to hand mix that before I pop it into my mold. And then I'm going to, just happen to have a dehydrator here that I think is going to serve just perfectly for this. I'm suspecting that the dehydrator is going to be a good option for home compostable plastic should you want to do something like that at home. It doesn't require a lot of power. All right, so our wax is, it's about 155. Okay, so now we're going to combine everything. It's the next day. What I've done here is I've made this up, and it's sat for 24 hours, pretty much. So give it plenty of time to relax in there. Now, this will make a very stiff plastic, and we're going to go over the reason why right here. When you use protein as a polymer, many of the same rules still apply, whether you use a bioplastic or a regular plastic. So when you look at a protein polymer, it is just a jumbled mess. What we're doing here is we're relaxing that and straightening it out chemically by adding the vinegar. Once that occurs, however, something very unique happens. What we'll make is a bundle of polymers that lay next to each other, and when they dehydrate, they form a very hard plastic. Now, to soften that, you'll take a hint from me, and my favorite plasticizer is glycerin. And if you've watched my channel, or if you would like to refer back to a previous video where I use glycerin as a plasticizer in many of my bioplastics. So it's my first choice. It's inexpensive, and best of all, it's effective. So for my purposes, in my opinion, bioplastics shouldn't last forever. They should last a few uses for a while. Once cities catch up and start providing a commercial composting service, then things will get better. So now, a home compostable bioplastic will be very valuable to a commercial composter because it actually adds nutrients to their compost, to their soil. Where a bioplastic, even though we have reclaimed its components, it has no nutritional value to the soil. So therefore, it does nothing for the plant. It's just simply a filler or an aggregate of sorts. So they can only use so much. The valuable stuff are the home compostable bioplastics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this with this to make a bit of a slurry, perhaps, and then I'm going to mold it, and we're going to pop it into the dehydrator for, we're going to start at 24 hours and see how that gets us. I think that'll be plenty. Now, before I open this is an airtight container. When I open it, I'm going to get a lot of strong vinegar. So I'm going to have to turn on the fan and to exhaust the fumes while I'm working this, but I'll let you watch what's happening, and we'll move in closer for that. Okay, so I've dehydrated this, and it turned out just great. Nice and hard, very strong. This is as strong as wood, and not very soluble, practically insoluble. You can do a lot with this. It is much lighter than the form that I used to make it. This is what I used to make it. This is a standard TV dinner tray. Billions of these going into the landfill every day. So, and this is virtually the same thing. Less weight because I haven't finished it off, but comparable in weight when finished. And the thickness can be refined to the point. It's, like I said, it's strong as wood. Now, once it breaks, of course, the trick is with something like this is once it breaks, it's a catastrophic failure. Just toss this into the trash. and not have to wash it off, wasting water, so that we can place it into a recycling bin to go to a separate location to be reused. How many people do that? Billions go into landfill every day. So we can't change human nature, but what we can do, of course, is reconfigure the effects. And I've said this before. Human nature says that once we're done, we want to throw this into the trash. So let's take advantage of that human nature and what our ancestors have already given us as far as being able to live off the land. And I assure you, no matter how technical you are or where you are in life, you, like every other person on the planet, you live off the land. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make another mix, and I'm going to mix the cloth here, and I'm going to make some waterproof cloth. Now I'm going to do it a little bit differently, but where I came across the idea was a fellow inventor, great guy, his channel, Robert Murray Smith, real smart guy, and has a great Australian accent. Just kidding, mate. Cheers. Okay, so in his waterproof cloth, he mixed borax with casein, and that is right out of a popular book that I'm going to include and in the link below. And I'm quite sure that's where I found the book, was on Robert's channel. So he used borax, and that, of course, is slightly alkaline, to dissolve the casein and relax it to make a biopolymer solution that he was able to dip his cloth into and then coat it with tea. And it turned out great from what I could tell, and I'm going to try it. However, I'm going to do things just a little bit differently because for me, I want to take advantage of the natural tendency of casein to be insoluble at a certain pH level. And at 4.4, casein is actually nearly insoluble. As we go up in alkalinity, well, we are approaching an increase in insolubility. So I'm just going to simplify things, and I'm going to stay down here as far as I can. Now, when I finish it, I am going to brush a mild solution of borax on the surface, because what I want to do there is I want to bring up some of the fibers and so that they can accept the tea more easily. So I'm going to treat the surface a little bit with borax, and then I'm going to apply the tannin. Okay, so that's what we're heading for right now. A lot to do, and we're still on this. Now, at this point, you could make something I played with similar to packing peanuts, or probably a foam tray of some sort. It's in its foam state right now, and it's a tricky process, so you would have to dry it pretty quickly. But it's a beautiful white foam. So there's an idea for you right there. So, but I'm going to let this sit overnight, and then I'm going to cut up some cloth and coat it with this. Perhaps use this again to form it. Might as well continue to recycle for a while. Place to be. Well, if you're still with me, God love you, because there's one more thing that I want to do. Um, in a previous video, I showed you how to make Galilith using these components right here. And a subscriber uh, made something using the formula that I supplied in that previous video, Rhiannon, and she sent me pictures of what she made, Galilith jewelry. And I think they're just amazing. Uh, so I'm going to include that because I think it's going to help tie everything together that I've done before, which is to use the same basic formula to make other things by combining different aggregates. Uh, so I'm going to make a Galilith soap dish. And I'm going to play around with that a good bit here because I'm going to be using that mold again and see what I can come across. Now, to milk is it's an amazing adhesive. The milk glue, things like that. So basically, that's what I'm doing, and it's going to want to really stick. And in this particular situation, because my mold is PLA, and I'm going to be putting Galilith against it, I'm going to need a heavy-duty mold release. So in this situation, I'm going to use a silicone spray to coat this mold. And I'm going to give it a good thick coating of silicone, and then we're going to use it like that. And try to include this that I've been itching to try. Okay, so still a lot to do. And I'll try to make it as short as possible. Thanks for hanging in there. We'll get going now. So while that dehydrates for a couple of days, probably, let's move on and do some testing on these. And before I get into that, though, let's answer one of Rhiannon's questions, which I think is very valid, given the subject of this video, which is to make plastic from milk. And her question to me was, what do I think about the effects on the environment for using milk as a plastic when it can be used as a food? Now, I can give you some of the facts, and then I can give you my give and take, or my shade of gray on such an important subject. The facts are that most cows are used for beef, hamburgers. And if we cut down on beef, we could significantly, greatly reduce the methane that escapes from simply beef cattle. And most corn and soybean are grown just to feed those cattle. So the beef industry is the main culprit in this situation, so to speak, because we use a tremendous amount of land mass to feed cattle that are used for simply beef. And there are other protein options, as well as other proteins that can be used in the making of plastic. It doesn't have to be milk. It can be any protein. Seaweed, there's lots of options. May be a very important industry for the future, and therefore we could embrace it more, because honestly, the facts are that dairy farms actually, they struggle to sell their milk, and a lot of it does get wasted as is, and they would love the opportunity to be able to grow, and selling milk to the plastics industry could very well be something that dairy farmers would simply love to do and could do to a very great degree. So we don't need to use the best milk to make plastic. We can use waste milk. Stuff that's about to be chucked down the drain is perfect for making this type of plastic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to water test a couple of these. And let's, here are Rhiannon's pictures. I like them so much that I put them up. So, but let's water test a little bit of this stuff here and see where we're at. I thought I had some water. Let me show you what I've done here with this one right here. This is something that I made originally, and it holds water for quite some time. This doesn't have tea on it. This was simply baked in the oven, and it simply gets harder, and the skin smooths out. The more you bake it, it becomes more and more smooth. So one of the reasons something becomes non-waterproof is the surface. If a rough surface is less waterproof than a smooth surface, because of course water will run off. Now, as you can see, it's fairly waterproof. It could withstand water for a good long time. I've soaked this thing for a week, and brought it back out and baked it again, and it's good to go. Let's see. This is essentially the same formula as the little grow pot there, but this was only dehydrated. It was never baked, and it has a nice water resistance naturally. A beading right there. We don't see any soaking in, but we do see a good amount of beading. And here we've added the tea just to help things along a little bit. Now the tea will help form cross links for the casein to hold on to each other. And that is really good. I mean, it just rolls right off. And it's still beating. Now, the point to such a plastic like this is simply to replace a one-use plastic. How long does a microwave dinner tray have to last? Well, once you've eaten your dinner, you can throw everything away, and it can go to a biodigester and be turned into mulch, which is very valuable. Let's try the cloth. And it's soaking right in, but I don't think that my formula is the best for cloth. So that one is a fail. You'll find out what works and what doesn't on my channel. Now here is the one that I dipped. Here's the clear one that I dipped in the tea and let it also soak for about 20 minutes. And if you, if you dip the one that doesn't have, the end that doesn't have tea, it holds up a little bit. As you can see, it's very brittle. But within a few seconds, you can feel it soften. So what will it do here once it's been treated? It's brittle, but it's not getting mushy. And of course, something like this can provide a very glassy, shiny surface. So just the slickness of this formula alone will give you a lot of waterproofness, and it will last for your one-use plastics. Now, speaking of one-use plastics, the incredible number of things that are made out of plastics and simply have one use. One problem that I had when I began my 3D printing was what to do with the spools. They last a couple of days once they're empty. There's no longer a use for them. So this is something that I'm interested in trying to make with a formula very similar to this. Let's see if I can get that done. But that's another video, I promise. So I'm going to close here. And I want to thank you so much for watching. It's been a long one. It's been a long one for me, too. It's taken more than a month. But if you like what you see and you want more content like this, well, you can simply drop me a line, leave a comment, and for sure, donate to my Patreon account. That would be just wonderful. And it'll help this channel produce even more content. So I'm going to close this now, and thank you for watching. And we're going to show the Galilith soap dish at the end if it works out. Bye-bye now.